afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys don't mind if I sit because I have a lot of slides to go through with a decent amount of text, and it's a little easier for me to read it if I'm looking at my computer. But first of all, this is a really cool sketch that comes from the 1956 yearbook. I don't know if anybody knows who. That whole yearbook has really cool sketches through it. So I don't know. The editor's name was Rochelle Mather, but I don't know if she was involved with the actual sketches. But I just used it as kind of a title page.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. So next slide. A little bit about me. I graduated in 1997 from Shakopee High School, the 10th Avenue Shakopee High School. Class of 1997 was like the last 180 student class. Every year after then they said it was going to grow by like 30, 40, 50 students. So we were kind of the last group through all the original configurations of Pearson Elementary, Sweeney, the middle school. And after I graduated, I went to the University of Minnesota where I studied construction management. Graduated in 2003. I wrote a paper actually that actually comes full circle to what I'm presenting today. It was part of my senior project. It was an independent study course, and I approached my faculty advisor and pitched my idea, and she loved it. She said, go for it, and the school district kind of opened up all their blueprints and files to me, and I just got to sit and look through things for like 4 weeks. It was a pretty fun time. So you'll see, as we go through these, you'll see some different images that are part of the blueprints. I couldn't get full images though because they're 2 feet by 3 feet. So what sparked off my interest probably was being, I'm guessing, about age 11, 12, and going down to Eastman Drug and buying this Shakopee scrapbook. And I remember there was a page in there that said Union School. And it had the address that was clearly Central Elementary as I knew it, but I just could not figure out how the pictures I was looking at related to the building that was standing there. So it was always in the back of my head that I hoped to someday figure that out. Still have this book, and my kids love looking through it. So
I did the same thing. It was that book that sparked mine.
absolutely, it was a great book.
And Shakopee Heritage Society has that book.
It's a fun one to have around the house.
Yeah, it is.
So this is kind of I guess the beginning of the school district story. It's stated that the educational system began in Shakopee in 1854. Classes were held in various locations, including the Stemmer home and the second story of the old post office building. 3 schools served the district residents during the 1870s. The District 1 stone building, the District 2 white school, and then the District 41 building. One burned down, one became the residence of Herman Deedy, and then finally this building did serve the school district, I believe, until 1918, and then in 1935 it was demoed. It was, I guess, fire marshal said it had to be taken down. So that was kind of the start of where the school district story begins.
For public school,
Correct.
because before then there was other schools.
I borrowed these images from Facebook. Christopher Reynolds put these together, and they're great at kind of showing the block and how it developed. So this is the original building that was built in 1881. You can see it would have been dead center in between Holmes and Lewis and 5th and 6th Avenues. I haven't seen any actual photographs, but this it looks to me like it's a sketch or a rendering of what that building looked like. Does anybody know if any actual photographs exist of it in this form?
I don't know if I have any or not, that old.
This is the only one I've ever seen that kind of shows it its original configuration. There would have been no power, no electrical power, no water or sewer wells or anything to this original structure.
Is that picture out of the red book?
Yes, it is actually.
So there are bathrooms outside, probably there were, outhouses.
In fact, I think they show it, these Sanborn insurance fire maps are really fun to look at if you ever get a chance to. But I believe that's what that little building on the back side is.
They have to have one.
Absolutely. So, the next slide will explain a little bit here about the 1881 building. I'll read through it. So it officially opened January 10th of 1882 at a cost of $10,000. And throughout my presentation, you'll see in parentheses, I've converted that to $2024 with, I don't know how accurate it is, but it was some sort of conversion tool, so hopefully it gives
I was
it a
gonna
little
say, how did you figure that out? Okay.
The first floor had 4 classrooms, each measuring 25 feet by 30 feet. The second floor had 2 classrooms measuring 25 by 30 feet, 1 assembly room measuring 25 by 60 feet. In 1894, the school was fitted with what they referred to as a modern steam heat plant at a cost of $1,305, which would be $41,000 today. So this would have been a coal-fired steam boiler with radiators in each of the room. Up until that point, it must have just been some sort of a basic fireplace or a wood-burning stove that just used convection to heat the building. So this would have been a big step up as far as keeping the building comfortable. By 1897, school enrollment reached 55 students, and the entire second floor was dedicated to the high school students. Just on a couple of these slides, I put in a little bit of other history just for context. So what was happening in Shakopee in 1881, the Lewis Street Bridge had just opened, and the first telephone in the city was installed at Strunk's drugstore. Going on in Minnesota at this time, James J. Hill was building his Great Northern Railway empire. And then the United States was deep into the Gilded Age, in which rapid expansion and industrialization was being experienced in the north and western states. I went and checked all the addresses around that block and what dates those houses were built, and only 2 on the list would have actually been built prior to 1881. So most of them were built long after the school. So that school was definitely built
In this area.
Yeah, it was definitely on the edge of town, so not much would have been around at the time it was built. So we'll start to get into the 1907 edition. You can see it was added on to the back of the original structure. And this is what it looked like. I had a little table back there you guys can check out after the presentation where I have brick from different parts of the building. The demo crew let me grab a few things on a couple of afternoons. So one thing you can see on this picture is the front half, which would have been original, is a little bit darker than that back half. And you'll see that over there when you look at the brick, that there's definitely a little different color. So I have some facts. Here's another Sanborn insurance fire map. Doesn't really show much other than just how it sat on the block. Another view of the school. And then some information about the 1907 edition. So by 1906, with a graduating class of 7 students, the school was quickly becoming crowded and inadequate. A school bond election in May of 1907 passed by a margin of 6-1. A $12,000 addition on the south side of the school nearly doubled the footprint of the building. A full basement, 2 classrooms on the first floor, inside sanitary facilities, and a large assembly room on the second floor were added at this time. In July of 1919, the school was struck by lightning and fire damaged the belfry, the cupola. Although it doesn't appear that the start of school was delayed because of this fire, it is believed that changed the exterior of the building and possibly the removal of the decorative roof. Happening in Shakopee around this time, automobiles were starting to make regular appearances. In 1908, the first municipal sewer and water mains were being installed in downtown, and actually up to the school block. And by 1913, we had 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week electricity established. Up until that point, I guess it was just during the daylight hours that it was provided. And in Minnesota, around this time, Minnesota had one of its worst natural disaster to date, the 1918 Moose Lake Cloquet fires. It still is considered the third deadliest fire in recorded history, with 453 people that died. And then going on at this time in world history, in U.S. history, the first Ford Model T was released in 1908, and the Titanic sinks in 1912. This is a picture of the assembly room that would have been in the 1907 edition on the second floor. Looks like they got everybody to behave quite well for the picture. I don't think we get the kids to do that today.
It's not much room for
Don't they
anything.
look at, like they're not very happy?
Very formal.
Good girls.
Wes helped me find these articles. These were the actual articles that spoke of the lightning strike and the fire. The article goes on to talk about that the fire department didn't actually have a fire engine and hose that was able to reach the top of the belfry, which led to more damage happening than probably would have if they had the proper equipment. But nonetheless, I followed the newspaper articles all the way through the fall, and it looks like school began without any problem. It was mainly exterior type of repairs that needed to happen. All right, so we are going to start to talk about the 1929 edition, which on this illustration, it has the dark blue and pink as two different editions, but they actually were done as one edition. So this would have been a proposed sketch that was in the newspaper, and the back half here you can see the Union School. And then this front half would have been the addition, so they would have added everything from the stairway and then north. And we're looking at the auditorium entrance from this view. So Union School, basically they just built right on the front side of it, eliminating any sort of entrance that would have been there. That's, I think, why they designed in the entrance that was on the east side there.
Is this face, now, where is this the north side? Or,
This
Yes.
would be the east
Yes.
side. We're kind of looking at it from the northeast. So we're kind of, if we were standing right along Lewis Street here,
oh, Lewis Street there?
this would be the back side of the Union School, 1907,
Oh,
and then the 1881 part of the Union School, and then the proposed 1929 edition. It's kind of misleading, the sketches, because they make it appear like it was pretty cohesive looking, and in reality it wasn't.
When I was putting together my own project for this, I just could not in my head figure out, is this the east side, the west side, north, south?
Right, it's, yeah.
So, yeah.
Until I had access to the prints, it was really hard to
Yeah.
figure that out. And this would have been the proposed west view. The library configuration, as you can see, changed a little bit. The library didn't have a door that faced out the side. It was built a little bit flatter against the building, and the door faced Home Street. But all in all, this became pretty much reality. Again, the sketches make it look like it's one nice, cohesive building, and they had a completely different look as far as brick color, texture. So that would have definitely been apparent if we had any photographs of this. This is not a very clear aerial photo, but it does kind of show how the school sat on the block at this point. You can see there was a curved entrance that came off of the northeast corner right to the auditorium. And then you would have had another entrance off the east side to that stairwell that kind of led into the Union, the old part of the building. And then from the west side, you had another entrance that fed into the library. So 3 points of entry into the school in that configuration. All right, a little information about the 1929 addition. Plans for the addition began to take shape in December of 1928. Building plans and estimates were drawn up in early 1929, and a $70,000 bond issue was set for March. On March 18, 1929, 636 of 672 votes were cast in favor of the school addition bond issue, and construction was to begin at the earliest date possible. The addition was to be built on the north face of the Union School building, where the main entrance, belfry, and cupola once were located. A library, gymnasium, auditorium, as well as several classrooms above the gymnasium were to be included in the addition. A new system of stairs would need to be added to this new addition to connect all the different floor heights between the old and the new parts of the school. That's probably one thing you guys can remember from the school. It had a lot of awkward stairs transitions, and I think that really came back to this particular edition where they were trying to take the old Union School and match it up to the new auditorium and gymnasium edition. A new entrance and stairway would be built on the east side of the school to service the old Union School portion of the building. The new addition would also have entrances at the library on the west side and the auditorium on the east side of the building, as shown in the aerial photo before this. The final cost of the addition and renovations totaled $90,000. The completed building had a total of 14 classrooms, a 600-seat auditorium, a regulation-sized basketball court and gymnasium, a library, a science laboratory, an assembly room, and boys and girls locker rooms were built in the lower level of the Union School to service the new gymnasium. Construction work was completed by the fall of 1929, but the official dedication of the building was conducted during the 1930 graduation ceremony. The library, gymnasium, and auditorium became community assets used for many civic events outside the school curriculum. One thing to note, and not super apparent in the black and white photos that will be shown, and then in the sketches we already saw, is that, again, I kind of spoke to it, the two parts of the school really did not match very well. They were very different, and a couple of photos will kind of show that. Happening in Shakopee in 1928, the new Holmes Street Bridge was completed, along with a new paved highway connecting Shakopee to Minneapolis and St. Paul. And in the United States, although momentum for the funding and support of the school came at the end of the Roaring '20s, the U.S. was about to experience the great stock market crash of 1929 in October, leading to the Great Depression, which lasted through much of the 1930s.
I remember, I'm just related to this, talking to one of the galleys, and they used to go to play gym, basketball at the Opera House upstairs. And they do that for a long time, and when that finally opened, they were so thrilled because they could shower, I guess, there. Whereas in the Opera House, they didn't have any shower. They said people could really tell the difference between there, he said, like this, and there. It's like, great, dude, I was so happy about that.
Absolutely. This is just an image of, this addition and opening of this portion of the school was a very big deal for the community, a huge celebration. This particular issue of the paper was dedicated to all the past graduates and kind of explained the development of the whole school district up to this point. So
It was very good.
just included a couple of images of that in there, as well as we got a couple of photos of the library that showed mural.
Yeah.
One other view of it.
Sure.
Oh,
Where did those pictures come from?
Those came from the Scott County Historical
Okay.
site. I'd never seen them before.
Yeah.
The Lake of Interest. So this is this will be a 2-page image, but it's an advertisement for the high school, kind of hoping, I'm guessing, to attract rural students. I don't know at what point it became a legal requirement that you attend school, but at this point it wasn't. So there's a whole list on the second page of reasons why the school would be great to attend, including free tuition, use of the gymnasium and auditorium, the science program, home economics. Several things are listed on this second half of the page. So they were definitely trying to get some more people involved in the school. The next 3 pages are just, they're cuts from the 1941, these are actually the first set of blueprints that the school had actually on site, and they were from 1941. Toltz, King, and Day were given the project of updating the school mechanically and structurally. So nothing really changed with the school configuration. It was more internal stuff, probably keeping up with code and whatnot. But what's significant about this is it kind of gives you a little picture into how the building was laid out, the Union School, and I'm sure it had changed several times over the years, especially the basement. I don't think it was built with the basement in mind to be used as a dining room or a kitchen or locker room, stuff like that. But they used every little square inch of the school that they could. So this is where it was at in 1941.
Was it still called Union School at that time, or is it?
I don't believe so. I haven't been able to figure out when that.
It was called Central, but I'm not sure.
They
It was
just-
Central Elementary later, but I don't know if it was just Central at some point or what.
It seems like by 1929, when that addition was put on, it was just referred to as Shakopee Public Schools.
Okay.
But I'm not sure officially when that name transition happened. All right, so this shows the first floor and just what each of the rooms was designated for. Besides manual training and drafting listed, the other classrooms, I'm guessing, were just used for flexible class space. Kind of shows you where the stairs was located in the building, and this was actually a pretty small footprint. I'm guessing these classrooms were more like the size of your typical bedroom now. I'm not a classroom like we're used to. They're pretty small. Yeah, I think 25 by 30 was the size that originally was listed. So small
What
space.
exactly is manual training?
Manual training, I am not entirely sure.
Is that like business, maybe?
Could very well
Ah,
be.
what's the word?
Saws, what's that called?
Shop.
Shop classes?
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking, shop.
Yeah.
Manual, using your hands.
like wood
Trades.
or.
I know, okay.
No, this was half of a set of blueprints that also showed the new part of the building, but in 1941 they really didn't do anything to that portion of the building that was already up to code. It would really had to deal with the old part of the building and making it safer and more comfortable. This shows the second floor, again, just more classroom space. This would have been the hallway that would have led then. You can see at the end of that hallway there's some steps, and I believe those were steps up that would have led to the classrooms that were above the gymnasium. If you guys can kind of picture the school and having the classrooms above the gymnasium. So there was a difference in floor height there, and that was the corridor that would have led to the new school, or new portion of the school, I should say.
Domestic science room. That was the home ec, huh?
Yep,
For
yep,
women,
that would
that's
be.
the girls all mixed in.
One thing that's interesting that I came across is Toltz, King, and Day is now known as TKDA. They're a huge commercial contractor that they did the new hockey arena in Duluth. They work with the airport constantly. They have huge projects going everywhere. So they've been around for quite a while. This schools were, I think, what they maybe got their start in, but you'll see that name quite a bit on a lot of our current infrastructure projects. All right, now in 1946, I'm going to show the next few images and then I'll give some context, but they were already starting to plan for the next additions they were going to be building. So this, and I apologize, the images aren't super clear, but it shows the existing structures. You can see it says the Union School there would be demolished, the Union portion of it. The present school where the auditorium and gymnasium are would be kept, and then they were going to build a new wing onto that would kind of go along Lewis Street. And they even had anticipated for what eventually became the 1960 addition. It was just a little 8-room classroom section they kind of built into this proposed plan. So this would have been right at the end of World War II. They're preparing for the growth of the district. They know they need to get some plans going, and this all eventually became reality. It just took a little bit, and I'll get into the details of that. This is just from the same set of blueprints. This was the proposed elevations that really held true to what the school ended up becoming. Because it would have taken 4 or 5 years before this actually became reality. And then here we have the west and south elevations of the building. So they definitely didn't make much changes to these 1946 blueprints. All right, so the 1950 edition, the school received several mechanical and structural upgrades in 1941, as we spoke about, but the overall look and function of the school remained the same. Starting in 1946, the school district began exploring plans for the next major addition renovation of the school. Several of the previous images are from the conceptual plans drawn up in 1946, most of which became reality. The delay in the proposed 1946 plans took almost 5 years to become reality because the community struggled to find the estimated $347,000 for the renovation and addition costs. Ultimately, it took 3 referendum attempts and a change in state law allowing the school district to finance up to 50% of its property value. That was increased up from 25%. And then the state fire marshal also condemned the 1881 and 1907 portions of the school building, so that really kicked things into gear. In January of 1950, the funds were finally approved in a vote of 702 to 211, and construction work began that March. So within a couple months, they were beginning work, which we'll see in a couple images here soon. The project needed to be completed in 3 phases so that school construction could continue through this entire project. The first phase of the project involved a new 2-story structure to be built along Lewis Street and to be tied into the existing school by way of the 1929 auditorium entrance. This wing would eventually house the elementary and junior high grades, and a new cafeteria on the main floor and a new school office and library on the second floor. Phase 1 was completed from spring 1950 to fall of 1950. Once this Lewis Street wing was ready for occupancy, the students would then be relocated out of the old Union School section, and the second phase of the project would be started with the 1881 portion of the Union building. I'll have some photographs that will kind of show the stages this happening, but they demolished half of the Union School so they could start to build what would become the senior high school wing of the school. Phase 2 was completed from fall of 1950 to summer of 1951.
It's just interesting that it took 3 referendums. I mean, they took a long time.
This is one of the images, again, that Chris Reynolds had provided, but it kind of shows how that wing is, the new wing they're going to build is going to come off of the auditorium and down Lewis Street. It's the orange color there. And this is them dropping the construction trailer in March 31st of 1950. And I wish the quality of the picture was better because this is, you'd be able to see the difference in the color of the brick. The Union School I'll refer to it as the Union School. The back half, the original half, was a yellower brick, while the 1929 section was more of a combination of red and orange colored brick. In this next picture, it's kind of just a little different angle. They've got a crane in place. They're starting to do the footings for that new Lewis Street wing, we can refer to it as. This little detail right up next to the auditorium window, this will be important. I'll show you in the demo photos. This gets revealed as they're demolishing this last summer. So that little cool stone detail was actually on both sides of that auditorium arch. We'll see in a future photo here. And this is just a few weeks later, they're putting forms in place and starting the first floor construction. A little more information on this addition. The exterior work on the new high school would occur fall and winter of 1950, with interior work occurring in spring of 1951. Eventually, the entire Union School building would be demolished, but this essentially meant that much of the demolition debris would be knocked into the basement as filler, and a paved play lot would be installed over the debris-filled basement until we found it in last year, 2023. Phase 3 involved interior work and the integration of the 1929 and 1950 additions. And that school was up, they finally had a chance to really start to dig into the interior work. So it would occur over summer break, and school did start on time in September with the completed school. The 1950 edition of the school used a clever exterior elevation design by integrating the same brick color and style used in the 1929 edition, along with a new sleek glass block concept that was used on most of the new exterior walls of the classroom wings. The new high school wing would include areas of instruction for home economics, metal and wood shop, drafting, visual aids, and business curriculum. The old library would be remodeled into the band room. The 1950 edition came at a crucial time as World War II had just ended, with an Allied victory, and an economic and baby boom was underway nationwide and in Shakopee. Happening in Shakopee around this time was the construction of a new 250-gallon water tower on 10th Avenue. In 1952, we had a record-setting flood year, and in 1954, the city built a new fire station. The building's still there. It's at 2nd Avenue and Scott Street. So these were some events happening around the same time. Important Minnesota events of the 1950s. 35W construction begins in the late 1950s as part of Eisenhower's Interstate Highway System program, as well as construction of the Lindbergh Terminal at MSP Airport. And then in the United States, in 1952, President Eisenhower was elected. In 1954, we have the Supreme Court Brown versus Board of Education decision. And in 1956, Elvis appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Great.
So this overhead image just shows the little chunk of the Union School that was remaining. We'll see that here in a couple of photos. They just demolished enough to be able to sneak through and build what was the high school wing. And they left that piece there, and as seen throughout these photos, that slowly over a few weeks, they must have just hired a couple of local demo guys because it was taken down pretty slow.
Yeah.
So that part right there was the Union, the old Union School. The
Correct.
Front there.
Yep,
And that's after it's all down.
exactly.
Okay,
Yep. This
okay.
little chunk that's remaining, that would have been the back half. The 1907 edition was the last part to go down.
Now I know.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is cool.
And you can see the pile of debris. They scraped away just enough to be able to put a paved play lot over it. And so they wouldn't get by with that today, but back then that was, I guess, acceptable to just kind of leave the debris under the ground. So at last, we're finally at the configuration 1950, where all these different phases finally look like a school that most of us remember. And we can see that in these photographs from 1953. Everything looks new and clean. And this next photo shows, this would have been the view from the southeast corner. And you can see they didn't have the colored glass block on that portion. It wasn't until the next section was added where that detail was included, so.
So it's just clear block?
Just clear block. And as they were demolishing this last summer, fall, you could see that that was exposed as well. As they were, when they did demolition, they literally demolished it in reverse of how it was built. So if you were able to stop down each day, like I tried to after work, you could kind of see different things get exposed. I have some yearbook photos. This shows a homecoming celebration. You can see a fire going on in the parade from the 1955 yearbook. The yearbooks are at the library and they're just a ton of fun to look through. This would have been from the projection room, which was on the second floor right by the library. If anybody had this class?
Yeah, that was my class.
Who said that? Oh, you, okay.
And it was used
Yeah.
for choir at one point too.
Was it really? Good to know. So this is a view of the auditorium as if we're standing on the gymnasium floor looking out at the audience.
That's a great picture.
Yeah.
Another picture of the auditorium from 1956. Looks like they have maybe a pit band set up, and I'm guessing some sort of a theater production going on. Here's a picture of the gymnasium in 1956. I just included this. This was out of the yearbook, 1956, the old PA system. That was kind of cool, photo. Picture of the cafeteria now. Sadly, at some point, the glass block and the beams and the ceiling detail was covered up by a false ceiling. I don't know at what point that happened, but you can see here that glass block detail would have let in some light, and it would have definitely given that room more character. Looking through the yearbooks, I noticed that this room was used a lot for proms and different activities. So got a lot of use of
Dinners
it.
there. Chicken dinner.
I've heard this wall was very popular, so I included a couple of pictures of it. This one from 1957.
Where are you at, Donna?
Far left, the last one on the left.
What's that?
That's me.
Which one?
The one on the far left, sitting on the,
Facing the other girl?
yeah, facing the other girl.
You can't see your face.
Here's that open window is a classroom, but
It was the library,
coming out,
wasn't
that
it?
was the library.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There also, I can show you in some later photos, you can see behind the gentleman at the very end, there were actually windows real low that opened to the back of the auditorium.
Oh.
I can show you a couple newer photos where those were filled in when they eliminated the auditorium, but there was a set of windows that sat lower that let some light and ventilation into the auditorium. Now, I don't know where, this was in the yearbook, and I have not been able to place where this entrance would have been at, or if perhaps it came from another, sometimes these photos were taken at other schools
Yeah.
when they were visiting. Does anybody recognize this entrance?
No.
Okay. I didn't either, but it was in the yearbook, so I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, no, I do not.
I don't do the,
But from time to time, I had noticed in the yearbooks there'd be photos of sports teams and whatnot, and then I would realize it was from a different school. So this may have just been an activity where they visited another school. Trophy case.
first floor.
Was it first floor?
Yeah, right, and that hallway going down from main entrance by that little wall, that was the main entrance.
Okay.
It was on the wall there.
Right by the gym, right?
Yeah, right by the gym, right in
Got
front of
it.
the gym auditorium, yep.
All right, the 1960 edition. This one was a fight. By the end of the 1950s, the Shakopee Public School was again overcrowded. In April of 1958, 17 acres of land known as the, is it Pluman property, is that correct? Pluman property was purchased just southwest of 10th Avenue and Spencer Street intersections. Initially, the new property was intended to be used for a new 12-room elementary school, but voters rejected this $425,000 proposal, 584 to 220 votes. The bond issue was voted on 2 more times in 1959, with both attempts failing. Finally, a 40-person advisory board was formed to determine what type of school improvements the voters would approve. The advisory board determined the city would support a new high school building being constructed on the 10th Avenue property for $1.1 million. Although the new 10th Avenue High School funds would eventually be approved and the new school would open in 1965, an immediate solution was needed to create more space at the current school. So finally, in September of 1959, voters approved $200,000 to build a 2-story, 6-classroom, 2-laboratory addition to the, that would house grades 1 through 6 along Lewis Street. So it was just that same continuation of that theme we saw with the 1950s edition. That new section would be dedicated to the elementary, so those were the elementary classrooms. That first section that was built then would be designated for the junior high school. A small but badly needed addition was completed for the start of the 1960 academic year. This would be the last major structural. Okay, this would be the last major structural change to the Shakopee Public School, that particular building, although various ADA, energy and technology upgrades would occur in the following decades. So this was kind of where the big changes ended. It's just a little overhead image showing that final little section there. And then a photo that shows that little section added on right there by the swing set. Another picture from 1960 of that same wall. Very popular in the yearbook, this particular spot.
I hate when they tore that down, but I always love that, I don't know why.
Love it.
This would have been the north entrance. I'm guessing these kids are arriving for school. In the 1960s.
Holler house across the street there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Most of them are gone.
1964 yearbook auditorium. So this kind of shows them sitting on the basketball court / stage and the little stairs that wrap around.
Does anybody know any of these people?
Yeah.
All
It
of
has to
them.
be
All of
Sandy's.
them. All of them. Where do you want to start? Waltz
There's one of you.
with the tie, that's Tom Moninger,
No, it's
Bill
part of our
Bjork,
class, it's not all.
Selvis Olson,
That wasn't the class.
Bob Watkins,
No, 'cause some of them are old,
Dave Lewis.
Dave Lewis is older than us.
Oh.
And who
We
else
should
is
take
older
that
than
picture and
us?
write down who those people are.
Sure.
We'll have to work on that.
Dave Rogers.
It's definitely in the 1964 yearbook. I should have captured the caption and what that particular group of
This
people all had
would
in
be
common.
Sandy's.
Well, it's just kind of cool to see the names of them.
5 years younger than us.
Ruth Ann.
See, you do
Anna
know
Marie
all of them.
Johnson.
Yeah,
Sure.
Now this is, we don't have a lot of views of the balcony area, but you can kind of see here, sort of there again on the gymnasium floor, looking out at the auditorium, and you can vaguely make out the balcony up there.
Sure.
So people can sit up there, in other words?
Yep, there was
Oh,
a
yeah.
stairways that led up to that, a double set of stairs, I believe.
To watch the basketball games and the plays.
All right, we have the 1965 picture from the library area.
Sure. Oh, Danny Wild.
And then this was, I believe, from the 1969 yearbook. This was the last graduating class in this auditorium. They would have already, if I understand it correctly, the senior class would have already been up at the new high school, but they held a graduation ceremony because that auditorium, for some reason, was not completed maybe at that
No,
time.
it wasn't completed till like 72 or 73.
Okay, that makes sense then. One thing I noticed was right on the end of the seat, you can see SHS written. It's kind of a cool little detail. It would have been fun to get some of those seats.
Oh, yeah, we have.
All right, so 1965 and after, Shakopee schools. In 1965, the new Shakopee High School on 10th Avenue would be completed. The old high school building, the wing that was in, would become the junior high school, and the Lewis Street wing would then be dedicated to the elementary kids. In 1968, Sweeney Elementary was built at 10th Avenue and Marystown Road. In February of 1969, a significant $2.1 million bond election was approved. The funds would be used to add an auditorium, shop area, and second floor classrooms to the new high school. Also included in this bond were the funds to build Pearson Elementary, which would open in 1972. Finally, $160,000 would be used for improvements to the original K-12 building, and most of this money went to converting the auditorium into a larger gymnasium. It was just the elimination of the seating area, the balcony, and making it one continuous gymnasium. Between 1968 and 1976, the original building would now be referred to as Shakopee Junior High School. In 1976, Shakopee would build and officially open the new junior high school at 11th Avenue and Marshall Road with a new indoor pool. After 1976, Shakopee now had a brand new junior high school, 2 new elementary schools, a 10-year-old high school with a significant 5-year-old addition. The original Shakopee Public School building at 505 Holmes Street would now become Shakopee's 3rd elementary school. At some point, I don't know if anybody knows when it actually became called Central Elementary School. I wasn't able to figure out when that exactly happened, but
I just remember it as Central.
this is just from the Shakopee Valley News, and it kind of talked about that $2.1 million bond, and I was just curious if anybody knows, they're talking about this huge increase in population, and the only thing I could come up with was maybe the industrial park. What, does anybody know what brought so much growth in?
Was that when the bridge was,
That was,
once the freeway was put in, the big
Yeah.
bridge? That's when
Well,
it really exploded. But I think that's,
This would have been like
earlier.
early 70s.
yeah.
But the Valley Green Industrial Park was the only thing I could find that kind of happened during that time, and
I don't remember.
There were a
which
lot
one,
of,
but that's exploded.
Industrial park?
Baby boom, really, those were growing up, so there were
Okay.
a lot more, the numbers were growing up. I'm sure that was a big part of it.
got it.
Because I know,
Yes.
at the elementary and middle school, it was like unbelievable getting.
This is just a picture of the new, I recall it the new high school, but the 10th Avenue High School. In 1967, it did not have an auditorium yet. It only had one level of classrooms. Just a very basic football field. But you can see how new all the sidewalks were, and even the houses along Lewis Street had pretty new young trees. Odd to see the neighborhood.
That was pretty, it was like the edge of town at that point.
Mhm.
Sure.
Cornfields is what I remember after it.
You're right, you're right.
So when I was researching this project in 2002 for the University of Minnesota, they were actually doing the exterior improvement, as they referred to it, to the school. One of the big improvements was the removal of all the plywood and insulation that covered all the windows in the gymnasium and auditorium. Those were covered up, I'm guessing, shortly after, around the energy crisis, and it made the building look pretty ugly. So part of this improvement was putting windows back in all those openings. Deterioration of the glass block walls and heat loss issues were corrected with installation of rigid foam insulation and stucco coat panels over the glass block. And they did that with colors that kind of complemented the brick. I mean, it didn't look terrible, but it definitely took away from the original look. At the same time, the classrooms above the gymnasium were upgraded with new mechanical, electrical systems, trim carpet, and new grid ceilings. Although the school was retrofitted with an elevator in the mid-1990s, the odd transition of all the additions created many different floor levels, making the entire school impossible to be ADA compliant, which I'm sure was one of the contributing issues to its demise. After its status as an elementary school, the building went on to serve the community in a number of configurations, including as a 5th and 6th grade center, that should say, early childhood care, school district offices, and community education, and its final title was Central Family Center. In March of 2020, the school district made the decision to move its early childhood education to Pearson Elementary and mothball the Central Family Center building. With the recent massive addition to the new high school, the school district finally had room in all of its buildings, basically. That addition to the high school allowed all the buildings to kind of reconfigure, and they now have room for growth, and that building was now obsolete.
The Pearson Elementary became the 6th grade center for a while, a couple of years where the whole town had to go to sixth grade at Pearson,
I remember that.
unless they went to the Catholic school.
These were just a couple of photos I took when I was doing the work on the project. These windows literally were just put in. In fact, I think in one of the photos you'll see some scaffolding, but it sure looked nice after being covered up for so many years.
Yeah.
And it's sad we didn't get to enjoy it for long. Yeah, there's the scaffolding. They even replaced the windows up on the top floor where all those classrooms were. It looks so much better than the plywood and the little
Sure.
cheap
The gym
windows.
was used by all the early childhood programs. The gymnasium was very nice after those windows were put
I
in. They
bet.
filled and the floor was shining and just good space.
All right, 2023 demolition and future plans. So Scott County Community Development Agency purchased the school and land from the school district in early 2023.
So just so you know, the CDA is one that what used to be Sundance Clinic on 4th Street. That became CDA, and now they're the one that bought the land.
The library mural depicting Shakopee's history from 1842 to 1940 was removed and preserved in partnership with Midwest Conservation Center. I don't know, is there any plans for where that
Not
library?
yet, but if they ever get building for the Shakopee Heritage Society, we'll take it.
Do we know where they're stored yet? Is it
I believe it's in the high school,
in the high school? Okay.
is what I was told, so.
I figured it'd come up today.
So in August of 2023, there was a team here for about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, and they were the environmental hazard removal team. So they went through and they removed all the ballast from all the fluorescent lights that contain mercury. Chalkboards were taken down because the mastic they used had asbestos in it. There was some lead, anything basically that was going to be an issue once they started to demo, and those particles would go airborne, had to be taken out first. So I think they were here for 4 to 6 weeks, working pretty hard on it. And then in late August and through September, Rochelle Contracting completed the demolition of the building, starting with the 1960 addition and working to the north and west, ending with the library. The demolition was strategically completed in reverse order of the construction sequence. And I actually asked one of the guys running the machinery if that was by intention, and he said, yeah. I said, buildings usually come apart kind of in the reverse order that they're put together. If it can work out that way, that they can do that. By September 19th, Rochelle uncovers the Union School basement buried under the paved play lot. I'll show you some pictures of that.
Who's Rachel?
Rochelle is
Oh,
the,
that's the contract.
the contractor. Sorry.
I assumed they were looking at.
So by early 2023, demolition and site work were completed. The CDA intends to build a 60-unit apartment for tenants age 55 and up, as well as their own new office space, with construction to begin in late summer 2024. And I have some pictures of that coming up. I'll show you the really cool renderings. This is just one final image, I guess, that I grabbed from Google Earth, mainly for historical purposes, because pretty soon we'll look on Google Earth and it'll just be an empty lot. But there was something I sent out on Facebook where if the picture was clear, you could actually see the fracturing in the parking lot of those basement, Union School basement walls. Between the winter and summer, the ground shifts and that pavement would crack on those walls, and it was pretty evident depending on when you looked at that.
I just remember when they had, I must have been about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I went to the school board meeting because they said they were gonna finally close and sell the area. And I remember talking, and they said it's just, the cost to do anything to it was so much, they wouldn't do it. And I said, well, my biggest concern was the mural. Because I said, that was such a big history thing, and I remember 3 classes that gave money for the purpose of having the mural done. And there are pictures, all the pictures in there have names of all the people and so it's just fascinating, really. I mean, it's not really accurate because they don't include a lot of people who were also there who were not white, for the most part aren't on there. But the information is so good, so that's when they said, well, same thing, but they just didn't know how to do it nice. So that helps with that, because basically we want to make sure it was safe, so, and they did, so that's good.
Yeah. All right, I've got some pictures. I was able to sneak into the building between when they finished up the asbestos removal and before they started demo. And I got just a couple photographs, but this is one from inside and outside.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, I got somebody
Who depicted that?
what is
as
the
a
person
Indian?
who's from that time?
Abstract.
He claims that this is an Indian.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
And I was like, oh,
That's what I was
I
told
couldn't
too.
figure it out. And he said, oh, I'm sure that's what it is. So I just wondered, anybody know about that?
No.
That was one of my questions.
You've heard that too?
I've not heard the Indian.
You just wondered
presidents
what it
out there.
was.
I don't see it though.
I know
I don't
you
either, I
saw
can't
it.
visualize it at all.
But I don't see an Indian in that.
I don't either.
I just see
But
multicolored
I
cars.
mean, it's funny,
And random-
it's something, but it's clear, you sit and look at it all the time because you can't figure out what it is. Okay,
It's
so,
in the color.
I've never heard.
There must have been some intention with the pattern, but I can't figure it out
so
myself.
someone who's had to like clean the outside sometime, or he's the one who's like, that's what that was, it's Indian. I said, I don't see an Indian. And he's like, I don't know either, but I believe that's what it is. So anyway.
This was an interesting photo I found. They had to remove the gymnasium floor, but this is where, on this side would be concrete from 1929 when the gymnasium and auditorium were built. On this side was concrete from 1969 when they filled in that floor. So there was this big long joint that you could see finally where that alteration finally had happened. So kind of interesting for historical purposes, I suppose. This is the stairway leading down to the boiler room, which is really creepy. The whole boiler room itself was just a creepy room.
That was the problem for everything, because that's just.
Limestone walls and brick.
Yeah, what's interesting, why I included these is, this is the, you can see there's like almost like a windowsill and kind of rough brick with more of a standard brick filled in. These are actually from the old Union School building. When they added on, they built the stairway down to the boiler room, And that was the only wall that survived from the Union School and survived all the way to 2023. So you could look at it, it had been painted several times, and they had run fire suppression piping through it, but that is the one surviving part of the school besides what was under the pavement.
Oh, that's cool.
And I took a couple pictures of there were two massive boilers down, and it was right underneath the library, which became the band room.
Yeah.
That room was probably 16 feet tall, and two massive boilers. This is kind of what they would look like. This was a well-known company out of Michigan that built those, and I'm guessing they had some serious power to be able to heat a building.
I feel like it was so hot in that room when we went to. I guess what I remember was it was so hot.
Originally, they would have been coal fired, and then at some point converted to natural gas, I'm sure. And picture of the backside, one of the, I think they refer to this as an expansion tank, but I don't know how the whole system worked, but I just wanted to get a couple pictures from there. This next picture is kind of significant because they had taken out the whole Lewis Street wing, and finally, that was that section that was a stairway and entrance for the Union School and the new 1929 addition that was kind of exposed finally again. The lower two levels had disappeared throughout the other additions, but that window and that top peak survived and were finally a little more visible when they got to taking some debris out of the way. And then this next one shows that little detail I was telling you about that was right where that bucket is where that auditorium arch window would have sat. And so on either side they have that little oval detail in the brick, and those became exposed about halfway through the demo process. So it was kind of fun to just see little things reappear that had been covered up for years. And then I included this picture. That is a massive steel truss that was holding up there. I think there were 4 or 5 of them that went across the gymnasium, and on either end, that was something like you would expect to see like on a bridge. That was probably 8 to 10 feet tall. Pretty cutting edge technology for 1929 when they built that, to have included such a massive steel truss. But those were the one thing that the demolition crew said gave them a little bit of a challenge, was fighting with those huge trusses over that gymnasium.
Would they removed whole, Chris?
Yeah, they did. They peeled them right down, and then they had 3 of those excavators, and one of them just had a huge, it was like a Jaws of Life big pincher on the end, and would just cut through all the steel and cut it into small pieces. This was their first dig into where the Union School foundation was. You can see right down the center is the wall. There's a little exposed chunk that was the floor, and then the other wall came in this way, and that's just all filled with debris. But this is when they were trying to, I think, determine how much of a mess they had under the ground, and I'm sure they had to submit some sort of a change order to somebody to finally get all that debris out of the ground, or maybe it was included, but it seemed like it was a little bit of a surprise. And this is another picture. They had actually scooped the whole basement out. This would have been the back wall of the Union School, the foundation, 1907, that concrete is from. So we're looking at 6th Avenue, and in that concrete you can see there's kind of a little strip that goes down. That would have been the wall that divided the girls and boys locker room. So. And this is just from a couple weekends ago. I just got a couple photos of it cleaned up and as it sits now.
It's so interesting to see the Catholic, the St. Mary's. It's so close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It changes the whole look of the block. So these were renderings I just got from the CDA a couple days ago. And it's kind of fun to see what their plans are. I don't know if you can share any
Sure.
updates on where things are at?
Yeah, well, everybody, I'm Julie, I'm with the Scott County Community Development Agency, so, glad to pop into your meeting, it's been great to learn. So on the right would be the CDA office building, that would be on the corner of Fifth and Holmes.
Okay.
And then the, left side there would be the 60 units of, senior housing, it'll be a kind of an L-shaped,
Oh,
building where the senior housing is, and then it'll connect to the CDA building. So the, that is on Sixth, the entrance there on the left.
Yellow cars.
Yep, yeah. So we should be breaking ground July or August. We will be into the city for land use applications in May.
All right.
So when will it be done?
It's about a 12-month construction time, so.
Is there underground parking with that?
Yes.
Picture on the right, then where does that face? Is that Holmes and?
That's the corner of Fifth and Holmes.
Oh, Fifth and Holmes.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll be right across, it'll be looking at the government center, just that connection piece with.
And at some point, we'll have to do some, not signs or whatever that talks about this. It'd be nice to do that, and we'll talk about that. And the other thing is, you mentioned, this is just in my head, is like, you want to do a book probably just on Central, as a thing to sell for,
Sure.
because you have all the information that's good stuff, so we'll talk about it later.
And I think this wraps it up. This is from a yearbook. And it was a cool quote. Through these halls have passed some of the nicest people, and I think that office lit up.
That's right, administration.
Okay, and who would be the nice people that would say it?
Right across the street.
There you go, Sandy.
How many people went to this school?
Oh.
And some, I also went for just band practice, so that counts up 5th grade.
And okay, yeah.
You never at all? Oh.
I have to say, when we moved from the old high school to the one on 10th, the guys had to carry the desks up, and we carried books up.
Oh, I heard this
It
story.
saves
Yeah.
me money, I suppose, for.
That is so interesting. I mean, so
We'll be
talk about that.
Yeah, we were the second class to graduate from the new one.
You
Was it in the middle of winter too? And did the transition happen, or it was?
Winter break or
I
something?
think we
It was
did.
earlier,
I
but
don't
I don't
remember
know.
that part.
I don't either. I was thinking fall or early spring, but I don't,
Yeah.
It's early spring.
was it?
But you remember doing that, having
yeah.
to do the work.
We don't carry a stack of books like this. They said not too many, because otherwise you gotta watch before you're even tired. And the guys, it was 2 guys to us, usually. There was a few that thought they were gonna show everybody else they could do one by themselves, so I don't know that much.
The football.
We did it.
We did it. And I don't remember if it was just the senior and junior class, or were there some, I think there's some sophomores,
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
maybe the freshmen
I'm
too,
sure
I don't know.
freshman too, yeah.
Huh, I don't recall that.
It was spanking new
Yeah.
when we moved
When
in.
you moved in, yeah.
Because we had to take all there was the library books.
Mhm.
Oh, the library books.
Yeah.
Then 40 years later, they built the mega school.
Yeah.
Right, so,
I'm glad we weren't walking there.
That was,
notice they didn't have, the people there who were in the high school didn't have to bring this up to the other.
one of our spring events
Yeah,
with
that
track
was a
was
trip.
to run from Central to Marystown and back.
I know the 19, I think it's the 1930 newspaper, he mentioned earlier, I think it was 1930, where they really talk about the history all the way back, and they have lists of who graduated in every grade, and what they do, I think, too, if I remember. It's, I mean, it's really the whole thing is all about the whole, and it's a big
Yep.
section. And so it's kind of interesting. Of course, we know that the first graduates, we do know that, that's in the Shakopee story also. But it's just kind of an interesting story also, I think.
Oh, this is great.
And think about it now. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Any other,
Wonderful job.
anything to remember, want to talk about?
I was just gonna say, I was there a lot I was a student there when my family moved here in the early sixties, but I was on the school board between 1992 and 2012. So, was in that building a lot, and we were talking about above the boiler in that, in the library, and
Yep.
that was the boiler room, and we listened to that, the boilers kick in, and it was really hot, but, something to be difficult to hear the people presenting, but I was gonna say, I worked with the Head Start program, which is an early childhood program, so it was one of the programs in Central as the last use, and that building was packed. I mean, it just kind of shows the growth of the community, but it was very well used. The district office didn't move out of there until, I don't remember exactly what year, but the early childhood programs moved out in March of 2020 when COVID hit, and then when they returned to Pearson. But the building was very well used. I thought it was really kept up well. The lunchroom, the gymnasium, the old library became a science room. It was like a STEAM, and used by all. And the only difficulty was for some of those real little children were at some of the steps. So it was awkward to be going up and down the steps. But otherwise, it was a building that was really still well used up until 2020.
Was there talk, prior, did the COVID stopping school, did that allow for the conversation of the building's demise to kind of finally kick in, or was it?
I think that it was probably in the works
Coming
prior to
anyways.
that. I don't know. I wasn't on the school board at that time anymore, so I don't know.
I remember it was the cost to fix it, to do mostly because of ADA, that the cost of that, and of course the boiler that was down below that has to be redone or something. It was I want to say 800,000, but I'm not sure if that's just a thing in my head or whatever. And it was too much for the school to be able to do.
I thought it worked very well for administrative uses because
Yeah.
all the administrators were able to have a nice sized office. There were meeting rooms there, and they had windows that opened. And so many commercial
Yeah.
buildings, they
Don't.
do not have windows that open. I thought, isn't that nice for people instead of being in the former Kmart building with no windows, no natural light? But that was the decision that was made.
Talking for a long time, and people really were very upset. And they were upset when it was torn down, because it's so much memories that's in there. But I knew it was clear that there's no way that we were gonna do it, so that's what I wanted. At least we got, like, for example, we got the mural out. And like I said, if we can do a book about excuse me, a book about this or something, so people have it for memories too, because it is a really interesting story all the way through, and we can intersperse with that with some people's memories too, would be really good to too. Of course, we don't have a newspaper now, so as of today is our last day, so
Yep.
we'll have to get some work on that too, so. But it's good, it's information people will enjoy.
Well, a lot of my information came from Jack Cole, who was
Oh,
band teacher,
yes.
went on to be principal of the junior high school, but I spent a couple afternoons with him having coffee, and I just would get so caught up in the stories and forget to even take notes, because he had stories and these battles with these referendums, and just it would have been great to have just had an audio recording of my discussions with him, because I think he came to the school maybe right in 1950, so he knew a lot about the whole district's history.
Just think, all 3 elementary schools that are gone. That, at the time that was, there were 3 elementaries, St. Mark's, St. Mary's, and what is now, was Central, They're all 3 gone, so.
That's kind of hard to, thinking about.
Yeah, all St. Mary buildings,
And
I I think St. Mark's was probably the newest. I'm not sure of that, but I think so.
Mary's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure when that was built. I know St. Mark was 41, so not newer than that one.
Very interesting. Thank you, I really, the information is just wonderful, very fun.
Very thorough.
Does anybody remember growing up in there, do you remember anything? Being
Any
at
special
this,
memories?
at the school? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember as a young grade school student, like maybe 61, 62, in that era. I was in that newest part of the building toward 6th Avenue. And I remember going downstairs, it was like a civil defense
Oh,
room where we'd have to go, because during that time it was Bay of Pigs and things, and there was concern about what might happen, and we would have to go down there to practice, just as children practice for a fire or tornado drills, or safe.
that's like sitting under the chair too.
Yeah, well, we go down under that part of the building, and I know there was some space there because that was storage space for the early childhood.
Yep.
Yeah, which those are drills that schools don't have today.
What's this?
Oh, you never know.
Well, I can
What's
say
going
it.
on.
Yeah, it was very convenient for me. It was about a half a block away
From where you live?
home.
Oh.
And I was lucky enough to go home and have lunch at my house and come back. Just
Or I heard a lot of stories, people would go over to Christensen's.
Oh, yes.
Or to the
Oh.
store, and
the little store.
it's hard to imagine that being a store, but boy, everybody remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
That's because we were there all
And
the
a
time.
lot of owners too. Joy.
Yeah, yeah.
And we had farther to walk. to
Footsie
school.
Plus. Yeah.
The library has, just right above here, I think, has the yearbooks just sitting right out. I think
Yeah.
they started maybe 1950 and all the way.
Well, you know, in the first one, someone told me one time, when did the yearbook first start?
The yearbook start.
Oh, I should have Lois knows.
It would have been
Lois.
Lois if anybody.
So
yeah.
Lois,
That was
Who's not
started
here
at
today?
Lex.
I know in Belmont it
57.
started in 54,
I think ours was
54 or 5.
1940s.
Late 40s.
Yeah.
You could go upstairs and look.
47.
Yeah.
It's all up there anyway, the light.
They were going when I was in school, so it was before that.
What year was
Because I've
that?
got one from freshman year.
Yeah,
What year did you graduate?
I was there from 55 to 59,
Oh, you're down.
so.
Sally, remember?
Yeah, it was before that.
Very cool. We'll have to have a time to some point to videotape some of you guys who can think of what you can remember about that school. That'd be good to have.
I'll do that soon, because I remember.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
We need to get that quickly, yes. So remember that too.
We should do that for a presentation.
Just come and do the
Just
presentation.
talk, yeah,
That might be what we could do for next time.
yeah.
So there was a lot of discussion on Facebook during the demolition of, we wanted a tour before they closed and demolished it. Last weekend, I unleashed all of the photos I got on a tour in 2021, January, February, of what the building looked like at that date. If you go to ShakopeeSnapshots.com, that's where the Remember When stuff went, and there's a bunch of posts of the tour, the building, and the demolition.
Pictures.
Pictures too.
Do you say ShakopeeSnapshots.com?
Yep.
Or you can,
And then you can subscribe too, right?
Like you, Joanne, yeah.
yes, because they used to do it in the newspaper about remembering from the different time eras. So now he has it online.
Yeah, I've been doing that way since 2021. It was dual, and then
Yeah.
this year I went all just the website. And it's allowed me to put more into there than
That's
500
so fun
words,
to
so.
read, too. Yeah.
Now if you just write it, put it as a newspaper, it will be perfect. So that's your next goal.
And don't forget, there's a little table back here with some bricks
Oh,
and
yeah.
glass block and stuff.
So go ahead and look at that too over here and then have a little more to eat, take some with you, and then thanks you again for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, appreciate it.
You know, I have a couple from when they tore down St. Mark's, we could go buy a couple.